Hey, 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 and welcome back to another episode of the Niecy D Show, brought to you by Blue Sky Media Group Studios. And my guest today is Senator Randolph Bracy. Thank you so much for being here and accepting the invitation.
Of course. Of course. You call, I'm coming.
That's what I'm talking about. So, all right, we're going to get right into it. I understand that you just passed a reparations bill?
Yeah, I did.
Talk to us. Give me the details. All the 411.
Well, it is called the Randolph Bracy Scholarship Program. And so, I'm honored, dealing with a legislature that is Republican control, House, Senate, Governor's Mansion. The fact that I've been able to pass something like this, reparations.
It's huge.
Really, it's only been done once in the history of this country.
See, okay, it's huge.
Yeah, you got to realize the context of that. Rosewood, they did a movie about it.
Yes.
That was the only time that a state legislature paid reparations. Mm-hmm. And so this is something that I've been working on. Last year, I got it so that it's taught in public schools. That will start next year about the Ocoee Massacre.
Okay, good, because this history isn't taught to us at all.
At all.
So, didn't mean to cut you off, but tell us a little bit about Rosewood and Ocoee Massacre. There's so many massacres that have happened across this nation that have been swept under the rug. So can you give us a little history about that? Yeah,
well, it's interesting, too. I think there's a show coming out about the Tulsa, the Black Wall Street that's being talked about because it happened 100 years ago. Now it's 2021. Mm-hmm. So that's why that's popular. But last year was the Ocoee Massacre. A lot of people don't know about it. It is the bloodiest day in American political history, and not a lot of people really knew about it. So you're talking about it happened on Election Day 1920, where these black people who were doing well financially, led by July Perry, a wealthy black man, owned considerable amount of land. He now organizes his people, the black people in Ocoee, to vote.
Yes.
And there was already tension because of
the fact that they don't want us voting.
that and they had wealth. Mm-hmm. Black people had wealth in 1920. And so now they're organizing the vote. They're trying to enforce their political power. And it was just too much for that era. Mm-hmm. And so they just, they killed July Perry. They strung him up on a tree. Mm-hmm. And then they killed a considerable amount of black people there and ran them out of their homes and then illegally transferred their property, which is still in the hands of the generations after.
The thieves.
Right. And so, but I thought it was important because the state played a role in this massacre. The state deputized the mob at the time. The city of Ocoee, Orange County, they all illegally transferred property. to the mob instigators. So the government had a huge part in this. So that's why it was so important to me once I learned more about the story. But we've got reparations passed.
Right.
And so what it is that every year there will be 50 scholarships for descendants. Descendants have preference. But then if there aren't any descendants to take this scholarship, then it will go to African-American students in Ocoee.
Okay.
Yeah, every year there'll be a $6,000 scholarship.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So now let's back it up. Let's get some information about you, the person behind the decision to make this happen. Who are you? What is your background?
Well, I grew up in Orlando. Well, my family moved here from Philadelphia when I was in high school. I was a person who just loved athletics and basketball, so I dedicated my life to that. And I got a college scholarship to a school in Virginia. Pursued basketball for years, playing pro basketball. Yeah. And then eventually I just settled down into this community.
You're not going to tell us who you were playing for?
Well, I played for William and Mary, was a Division I school, but then I played in Europe, in Turkey. And some minor league teams across the country, just for years, just trying to pursue. I worked out with the Magic, had a couple tryouts there, but and then I just decided to settle down in my career, figure out what I'm doing.
Yeah, take a different journey.
Yeah, and so while I started a business, I had a interest in politics. My mother first ran for a school board seat 20 plus years ago. And she asked me to be her campaign manager. And, you know, I just got into it. She has quite a story.
She does.
You know,
shout out to
Miss
Dr.
LaVon
Bracy. That's right.
Yeah, let me give her her title.
That's right. She earned it.
She did. She did. So she set the tone, and she was the first person to integrate the public school system in Alachua County, and she's got some horrific stories about what that was like, breaking those barriers. But working on her campaign kind of got me to pay attention to what's going on.
You got bit by the bug.
I did.
You got bit by the political bug.
Yeah. And so from there, I started just working campaigns. And then when there was a seat open almost 10 years ago, I ran for it. And I won. And so I think...
and that seat was?
I was state representative. It's currently held by Camille Brown.
Camille Brown, yes.
Yeah, she succeeded me after I decided to run for the Senate. Yeah, and now I'm gonna be running for Congress. It looks like our great Congresswoman Val Demings is running against Senator Rubio.
Senator Rubio, okay, yes.
Yeah, so I'm looking to replace her there.
So how important is it that these seats are transferred from one to the other? What is the mission behind that decision to go after that position?
Well, I've always looked at it like it's just a greater opportunity to serve. You know, like when I first ran, I was in the state house. The Republicans had a supermajority. I felt like my agenda and the people that I represented and the people that would talk to me, it was difficult to get what I wanted passed, right? And then, but moving to the Senate, you have a lot more influence to do things. There's less senators. And it's just the way it works is like Democrats have a lot more power. Okay. Even if you're in the minority, if that makes sense. And so I felt. And
I was going to ask that because I don't think people understand really not only the political structure of things, but why there's opposition at certain levels and how are certain decisions and bills passed on other levels when you still have the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. So
yeah. Well, that's a good point, and a lot of people don't necessarily know how that works. I mean, I had someone yesterday came to me and was like, you know, I got a pothole in my street or whatever, and you know, we're making laws on a state level, but they look at you and they say, you know, fix it, and
on the local level,
and so that's a city commissioner issue, and I get it, and we actually still try to reach out to our commissioners for that. But we are making laws for the state, so at our level.
So there's a criminal initiative that you passed or you're working on. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I was the sponsor of a police reform bill.
Okay.
Yeah, so this was something that I had been working on for years, but it seems as if the George Floyd murder
brought things to the forefront.
Yeah, it kind of gave some momentum to have our Republican counterparts to say, all right, we're willing to hear some legislation when we've been pushing it for years. So there's a couple things in it, but basically it's requiring now that police have procedures in place that teach de-escalation. It will ban chokeholds. Unless they're under the threat of death. And I wanted to ban them all together, but that's one caveat that they required. And pretty much just so people know, they have the power to set the agenda. So if they just say we're not doing this, like they have said for years, they just didn't do it. So they were willing to do it, but they said you got to put this in place. So okay, we'll ban chokeholds, but if an officer is under the threat of death, he could use it. But they have a duty to intervene. Like if there's been excessive force being used, all of these procedures are now in place where officers have to be taught on this, and it's a part of every police unit that they have to be trained on this.
So what about accountability of the officer when these initiatives have been put in place and now they have to adhere by them? What type of recourse when they don't? Right,
that's a great question, and this bill doesn't go far enough, and that's one of the reasons why I've said it over and over again, and I've challenged the other party to say this is a good first step, but it doesn't go enough because it does not have the accountability measures that it needs to have, and so I'll just be honest and say it doesn't go far enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the average person that's out there in the community, those watching, those that we know, friends, families, neighbors, and so forth, we all talk about what we see. Everyone has an opinion about how it should be and what can be done. But how do those voices make their way to someone like you so that it is included in initiatives like this? Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, well, we have town halls. We get emails all the time. We try to be accessible as possible. We get calls all the time where people reach out to us. I give my email out, our phone number out anywhere I'm talking, so that people know. Hit me up on Instagram, Facebook. Like, I read it myself. So I try to be as accessible as possible. Right.
So how about a psychological component? Because clearly there is a difference with how people of color, black people, black and browns, I mean, there's so many different ways that it's said, are treated when it comes to interaction with the police.
Right.
I think somebody might need to look into the psychological part of that because it's just too common. So I keep thinking it's got to be something more than training per se. Has that ever crossed the desk? Has that ever been included in the conversation?
It's not enough, and I think there needs to be some psychological evaluations of officers if they're going to be out on the street and they are enforcing the law. We need to make sure that they are psychologically capable, and have enough sensitivity to do their job in a way that
for everyone. Cultural sensitivity.
Right.
When you go to interact, don't just immediately assume the negative.
Right.
So I hope that will make its way into I guess amendments, extensions, or what would that be called if it made its way? Yeah.
Well, it would just be adding on to this bill. So this was something that passed in the last 2 days of our legislative session. It was a negotiation. There were still people that didn't want to see this. And so, although it doesn't go far enough, we got much more to do. I mean, we've got to look at no-knock warrants.
Yeah.
Like when the situation with Breonna Taylor.
Yes.
We've got to look at, you're seeing a lot of officers that are taking people's cell phones when they're recording incidences. Right. So I'd like to.
So is that a law? Are people breaking the law by simply filming?
No, but you're still having officers that are taking their phones, and so I think there should be a prohibition against that. First of all, it's their property.
Right. So isn't that theft? If you take something and I don't willingly give it to you, isn't that theft?
Right.
I'm just curious.
I would say so. I mean,
and the reason I ask, maybe it's being petty, but I know that when there are situations, the most unheard of law pops up out of nowhere and are applied. But it's a dangerous job. In all fairness, it's not about beating down the police.
No, not at all.
It's not about making them the culprit. But when they leave home, their family is expecting them to come back home. But so are the residents of the nation. When your loved one or your family member leaves home, you're expecting them to come home too.
Right.
So if maybe everyone can kind of put a personal face to one another, and have some compassion for one another, that might help to put some level of resolve in certain areas as well.
Yeah.
But okay, so moving on, because that is, I think, an ongoing situation. It's going to take some time. Is there something that you would have wanted to be included in this bill that didn't make it, that kind of, as we say in film, it ended up on the cutting block?
Yeah, I think some kind of accountability measures that I think will give pause to certain officers if they're, about to go rogue, that they know that I could be reprimanded. I think that's what gave the boldness of Derek Chauvin, that just for years. They just know that there's no repercussion.
Right.
So I just think that, if they know there's something in place that will hold them accountable.
And do we hit the officers' pockets, or do we continue to put the pressure on the taxpayers' pocket?
That's a great point because, what happens is if there is misconduct, it's usually the taxpayers that have to pay it. Let's say there is a settlement agreement, and the city has to pay or what have you, but that money comes from people instead of the department or from that officer. I do know departments have discretionary funds and things like that. But again, if you don't feel the impact yourself for your behavior, for your wrongdoings, or for your unfortunate bad decision, you kind of still, you're not feeling the sting of it. Right.
Okay, so we're gonna keep an eye on that, and hopefully people will respond, leave comments, and let us know what you think about this conversation. What are your thoughts? Are there some suggestions that we need to send your way? So now let me ask you this: what other initiatives that are dear to you would you like to share with us that you've had your hands in?
I'm working on a little bit of everything. This year I had worked on a bill that would expunge people's marijuana convictions for possession. So, and I just started with misdemeanor possession. Sometimes you gotta try to pass the least resistant bill possible, and then try to expand.
Go the least resistant path to get it done.
Right. Let's just start here. I'm not going to do too much, folks, because people get nervous in Tallahassee. Like, wait, I'm voting to expunge marijuana convictions, especially like the Republicans in these conservative areas. I was like, just misdemeanor amounts. But our misdemeanor amounts are large amounts. I think it's like 21 grams, 22 grams. I mean, that's one of the highest thresholds to get to a felony. So even though it's a misdemeanor, it just needs to be expunged because we're going to a legalization framework.
I was going to say, so how does that even work? Because number one, destroying lives with these misdemeanor cases and so forth, or arrests or what have you. And then on the flip side of that, there's legalized marijuana. But then the flip side of that is, well, there's only medical marijuana. So there's so much confusion because you have people chiefing in public, it's legal. And then they're like, kink, kink, kink.
Right. Wait a minute. How'd that happen? Yeah, I thought we legal now.
So what are the differences? Can you help us who don't understand all of this?
I just think that you have to have a medical card. To get marijuana.
So how do we get a medical card?
That has to be
not that I need anything.
Right. Me neither. But I tell you, you got to apply.
Inquiring minds want to know.
Right. For
Asking
those
for
out
a friend.
There, right. Not for you, but for your friend. Gotcha. Yeah. So I would say, they got to apply through the state. It's a simple process.
Oh, through the state, not through their doctor.
What? Sorry. Yes, you have to have.
Oh, because I was about to say somebody doing something wrong.
Yes. Sorry. Well, see, I don't know. See, I'm not.
Good answer.
Right. See, I don't know all this process because I'm so far removed from it. Yeah, you do have to have your doctor's approval, but and so I would talk to your doctor about that
and find out.
But I do think there's an application process to get the medical card too, which requires your doctor to say you need it. So I think, but you check that out.
Yeah, y'all check that out with your doctor. We are not doctors, so just go talk to your doctor.
Yeah,
and we ain't talking about the doctor on the corner either. Well, actually, they
not the street pharmacist.
They all actually replaced the street pharmacists.
They actually have.
You notice that?
Yeah.
Interesting. They all went on the corner.
Right. So now you've got
things that make you go,
something to think about. No, it's a real thing because you have people who have been arrested for generations. Right. Got a record. Stopped them from getting a job, getting a place, what have you. And then you got this small group of people that are now making
millions
of dollars.
And once again, disproportionately. So we have helped build the prison system.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Which is big money.
Big money.
Right? Third grade to prison pipeline. Right? And everything in between. And now the legalization of marijuana and all these smoke shops and all these dispensaries, and where are we in the scope of things? When we were the guinea pigs. We were doing all the groundwork to know how much money can even be made. So now where they do that at? What's going on?
Where they do that at? No, that's a great question. I mean, I think that's really part of the reason why I was just like, we've got to start here and expunge records, because you've now created an industry, a legal industry, and yet you've got all of these people for decades that you've basically built the prisons, the mass incarceration system that we see today.
Right.
You know, off of people selling small amounts of marijuana.
Right. To survive.
To survive, right?
Just to get some food,
right?
Okay,
and it was
some
obviously
and some gold chains. But hey, who's looking at that?
I mean, people got to floss a little bit, but
a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, it's in us.
Shining. Yeah.
That's just how we do.
So I mean, so once those records are expunged, this gives them somewhat of a new start, kind of like a clean slate. What does that really offer them?
Well, here's the thing. It didn't pass this year, so I got it past the Senate. It passed the Senate body. The House, which is much more conservative, we couldn't come to an agreement. They didn't want to touch it, and so, but I want to keep talking about it to like build momentum behind it, put pressure on.
Because I would think both sides would really look at this. It's not like just because you're Republican, you didn't get the charge. You know, you didn't catch the charge because you were Republican. Like,
right.
So I would have to think that some of their constituents, some of the people who vote for them, some of the people in the communities they represent have this issue, and this could be a benefit to them as well. So these are the types of things that make us all scratch our head and wonder, why can't there be a consensus? Why can't people come together?
You know, that's a good question, but I also think it belies the point that you got a situation where black people are arrested more often than white people for the same crime.
Right.
So they may not be as worried because, you know, police aren't going into like, college dorms or they're not breaking into just white people's homes.
Right.
Because they're selling marijuana. Like they go to certain places where black people are, and that's where they
kind of make it a black person's issue, a black person's habit,
but studies show that both races use it at the same amount.
Right.
So it's like, so how is it that everyone's using it at the same clip, but people,
so that
black
kind of
full
circle goes back to the purpose and the necessity for these types of reform bills that you put in. I mean, it's almost full circle. These are the examples of why that's necessary.
Right.
Okay, so
and not only that, I think we need to go a step further and like carve out spaces for black people to have ownership in these new marijuana businesses.
Because the pricing is ridiculous in trying to get one. And obviously if you have, I'm guessing certain scars on your record and so forth, they try to use that against you as well.
You can't get in it,
Yeah, so I mean, who do the people go to, or where can they find information on how to get these dispensaries? Is there funding? And let's talk about funding for minorities, for black-owned businesses, for female-owned businesses. You know, let's talk, money on the table, because, there's money under the table, right? Then there's money on the table.
Absolutely.
What type of funding is on the table for these types of situations?
There's not a whole lot, and that's what I was trying to create. So I had a legalization bill to just legalize it, but also put in place those carve-outs that we talked about, and it going to just a bunch of different good ways to use this money as we get the revenue for legalization. Because Florida, I think, is prime for legalization, and so I think
absolutely,
I
would love to have a dispensary. I'm gonna just put it out there, just put it out in the universe, just in case. I don't know. Maybe there's some billions and trillions of dollars that's out there.
They should have.
But that's a lot of work, though.
It is. I mean, it's not easy to.
I wouldn't know the difference between what they got all these different names and buzz, and I wouldn't know.
But they need to
I would
have.
think it's herbs for tea, and I've been and drank up all the weed, just not even knowing. And then what you doing? He's boiling me some tea. Just give me some more tea. Hey. That's the stock. Oh, my bad. I thought it was chamomile tea. I'm sorry. Okay, so maybe we scratch that. Maybe I don't need a dispensary.
But you know what's interesting, though? I think if we could break it up where people can get into different parts of it, like it's a, what do they call it, a vertical industry now, where one company has to do the creation of it, then the dispensary, then the retail. But if they can break it up and let people get in. Then
there's different business opportunities, business structures.
Right.
Okay,
because now you got to have so much capital to even get in it.
Exactly. And I'm thinking, where these people get this money from?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's basically for billionaires and multi-millionaires right now. It's they're creating a monopoly where a lot of black people and others just can't get in. Right. The barriers to entry are so high.
So it's huge that Jay-Z, I think, just landed an opportunity to be able to have something, and I guess that's what it is. You build from the ground up, stack your paper, and make some moves.
Well, he's got a name, too, so there's other wealthy people that would love to partner with him just because of his name and his brand, right? I've heard, like, Snoop and just others are getting in the industry. Yes. But, a lot of people are looking for partners. Right. So that once they have a brand, this rapper is associated with it, or this athlete is associated with it, and well,
we're gonna keep our eyes and ears open. Another topic that I'd like to touch on, as far as entrepreneurship and things like that, is all right. So we got these stimulus checks that were flying all over the place, and funding for this and funding for that, and PPEs and PPPs, and so. Tell me a little bit about that. What's left, if anything? What can small businesses do at this point in the game? What's available?
Well, I'm not an expert in that. That's the federal system. But I will say that we as a state received a lot of federal money from the U.S. government, and we've used it in a number of ways. One, we've tried to fill in the hole that was left from paying out a lot of unemployment during the pandemic.
Yes.
I created a appropriation of $30 million to go toward museums. So either startup African American museums or existing African American museums.
Which is huge right now. I mean, that's a very necessary initiative.
Absolutely.
Because our stories aren't told.
It isn't.
And so much of what we've accomplished over the millenniums hasn't been talked about, highlighted, so that's great.
Yeah, so we got $30 million, and it can be dispersed in $500,000 grants. So it's specifically for capital improvements. Just getting your building right.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what that is for. And but as far as the stimulus money, I still believe from what I'm hearing that there's still money to be made to be had out there if there's a need. Okay. And that's just a process.
So we're going to make sure that we put your contact information and your social media links up so that people know how to reach you. Yep. And definitely, I hope that they will take advantage of being able to have access to you and get some things done, because I sure will.
Anytime.
But before we leave, let's talk music real quick. Who you listening to? What's in your on your playlist?
A little bit of everything. I love hip hop. I love gospel. Ty Trippin and I have really gotten to know each other, and so he's been on my playlist. He's doing some good things, I think.
So you'll have to let him know that I would love to have him as a guest on the show.
I'll let him know.
Yeah, definitely, because he's definitely making some music, like real good, up tempo, but meaningful, not losing the message at all. Inspiring, so that'd be great.
I think he's a genius, like musically. I
definitely doesn't get the credit he deserves.
No, I think he's pushed gospel forward.
Absolutely.
I mean, he was one of those people, like when Kirk Franklin came along. I think he was a little bit after that, but just to kind of push it forward where it's not just a traditional gospel, but still has such a powerful message. So we've connected, and we've connected on music too. I love music, and we might have a project that we working on together. So
yeah. Okay, but that's what's up. I want to know everything.
Yeah, and then
so we'll have you. Matter of fact, we'll have you both back.
Okay.
How about that? We do it like that.
I like
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And we can talk about the project. What he's doing, how you got in that lane, and
I love the arts. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I decided to try to create a space for African American museums and arts, and so that they have funding to do what they do. I just believe in the arts and funding it. And another project I'll just talk about real quick is a movie for related to the Ocoee Massacre.
Okay.
Yeah, I got state money to fund partly a movie about the Ocoee Massacre, and so I've been working with Netflix, and this is in conjunction with Valencia. Where we're
Netflix is not playing at all. Netflix has got it going on. They got some good projects.
Got some great projects.
So that's a lick right there.
It is. I mean, the content nowadays is good, and there's an opportunity for not just big studios to get into it.
Right.
So it's
well, there was a phrase, we're gonna watch Netflix and chill. They need to change that. We're gonna watch Netflix and learn something. Because they're dropping knowledge on a lot of these films and things that are I guess exclusively how do you say it? Netflix series and stuff like that.
Right.
But congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah. So we got the funding. We're still figuring out like a director and finalizing script ideas. But that's a project that's starting.
But do I have to what is it? Read to get casted in it?
Well, since we got you got the plug right here, so I get you in contact.
All right, that's what I'm talking about. All right, well, I really appreciate you taking the time out to come and hang out with us here at the Niecy D Show. I think we had a great conversation. I hope that everyone learned something today, which is they should have, because I definitely did. Yeah. Any last words that you want to leave on our minds to marinate?
Well, I will say that I am running for Congress, and I couldn't help not say that. But I would ask people to go to bracyforcongress.com. If you can contribute, great. I've tried to do my best to serve this community for the last 10 years, and even before that, but in elected office, and we've got a lot done. One thing I didn't talk about is a $33 million appropriation to our private HBCUs, in particular Bethune-Cookman. They were in jeopardy of closing down. A lot of people don't know the backstory. So,
well, that's huge. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So,
I personally went to Florida Memorial.
But Florida Memorial got some of that too.
I know they did, and I thank you again.
Yeah, Florida Memorial.
That's huge.
Yeah. So I think my record speaks for itself, and I would love to continue to serve this community in that capacity. I feel like it's the next step, and so I would just ask people to support.
All right.
And vote, yeah.
Well, you guys heard it. All right, Bracy for Congress.
Hey.
That's what it is. Thank you again. Thank you so much. And that would conclude another episode of the Niecy D Show, brought to you by the Blue Sky Media Group. We thank you for watching. I'll see you again soon.
Talking to you on the ones and twos. DJ Niecy D spreading the news. Nubian Queen worldwide play that. New music, she ain't scared to break that.